right, guys, can you hear me tonight?
Yes.
All right, good deal. All right, so it looks like you guys survived the cold temperatures last week, so that is a good thing. Okay. Ashley has been there. Dylan, Matt, Cassidy. Okay. I've looked a little bit at your assignments for last week. It looks like most of you guys were able to get those completed. If you weren't, I can go ahead and open those up for you since we really weren't supposed to make you guys do stuff last week. So if you weren't able to get those assignments in or the test taken, they will be available to you this week to get done as well. I just know that for some people, it's better to go ahead and get it done on a keep up with it weekly as to have to do two things all in one week. But feel free to always let me know if something is going on that's keeping you from getting stuff done each week. So because I'm really pretty flexible, especially with things being as weird as they are right now in this world. So anyway, okay. I heard my phone buzzing, so all right. It wasn't any of you, so that's good. Catherine, I think you kind of came in the middle of that announcement there. I haven't looked to see if you got everything completed that was due last week, but if you haven't, I will adjust the time frame on that and let you guys have this week to get those completed as well. So that's what I was saying as you were coming in. Okay, any questions so far about Excel? I know you guys were kind of all on your own last week.
I have a quick question.
Okay.
Okay, my question's more or less probably for after class, but during the Excel, both of the projects, there
Yes.
were at least one or two tasks that I completed that I couldn't figure out how I did it wrong because it said that the equation was wrong, but it wasn't.
Okay. Someone else asked me about one of the equations, and what they were wanting you to do is use an absolute value. And we don't learn about absolute values until module 3. So she had the formula correct and was getting the correct answer. But it was just, I think it was, I want to say the second part of the formula was like times J2, and it always went back, or plus J2, I can't remember. But you always had to go back to that same cell reference. And so it was a pain because you had to type it in each time. When we get into module 3 and we learn how to do an absolute value cell reference, we will be able to copy and fill that over with the fill handle. but that's an error in the textbook. They should not have asked you to know how to do that, especially in Module 1, since they don't introduce it until Module 3. So with that, I'm just going to have to go in and manually adjust scores. I don't know if that's exactly what you were talking about, but I know that was one that was brought up to me this week. And I will tell you, if I haven't already, I don't always remember what I've told you and what I haven't. If you don't score 100% on your projects, I do go in and look at them. Sometimes it takes me a little longer than others. I'll go in and look at them and adjust scores as I see needed.
Okay, yeah, because that was my question. I was missing quite a bunch of points because it would say that the equations are wrong, and no matter any way,
Right.
shape, or form, I could have figured it out. Like during the second one where it gives you the 12 instructions,
Uh-huh.
for one of them, it tells you to enter the equation to subtract I4 from H4, and then drag it down so it copies the equation,
Uh-huh.
and I got that. But the only thing that wasn't exactly like the reference page was that no matter what I did, they weren't in parentheticals, and that was the only inconsistency I could figure out.
Okay. Yeah. And like I said, I'll take a look at those, and I don't know. I don't know how the textbook company, I mean, with it being an electronic textbook, they can go in and edit that, but I'm sure they've heard from multiple people already that that's an issue. And maybe I'll just start putting that in my instructions for the Excel module 1, that's what you have to do for that particular step. So, but yeah, that was one thing that was brought up to me by someone else. So hopefully that's the only issue that you guys came across. But if anything else, let me know. Devin, I see that you've come in. I did announce that if you were not able to get Excel Module 1 work completed and the word test taken this past week, I will allow you guys to do that this week because technically you weren't supposed to do work last week, which didn't make any sense to me since we are all virtual, but that's all right. I'll follow the rules. But just so you know, you have this week to get those completed, and I'll have to adjust the time frame on that for you guys. But I'll get that done. So if you didn't get those completed, you'll have this week to do it. Okay.
Okay, thank you. I need all the help I can get.
Okay. Any other questions before we go ahead into module 2 tonight? Okay. So let me share my screen here. Okay, and I'm going to make this bigger so it covers more of the screen so you guys can maybe see it a little bit better. So in this module, we are going to be learning more about formulas and functions, and then we do quite a bit with formatting, and we're going to learn how to do something that's called conditional formatting. That's one of the first things that's going to allow you to see some of the power that you can get from Excel in letting it do the work for you versus you having to scroll through data and pull out bits and pieces of information. We'll also be using, we'll be creating formulas, we'll be using functions, and we're going to use those fill handles to fill information across columns or across rows. So you're not having to do all of the data entry as well. We're also going to learn a technique called flash fill, which is kind of handy, and will also help cut down on some data entry errors if you find something that you can use this flash fill for. So that's a few of the highlights. What we'll be doing. So when you get your textbook project opened up, it's going to be blank again. I just basically I pulled this one up from the completed one, and I took out the things that I wanted to be able to show you tonight. So you can see that there's typing in here that I'm not going to have to do to help with time of getting this all done. So let me see here. One thing that I'm not sure if I pointed out in module 1 in the training that I recorded for you is in the beginning of your textbooks, both modules, they do point out that when you are needing to create a worksheet from scratch, it is imperative that you know what is being requested of you, what is required of this spreadsheet that you're creating. What is the end result? What is it that you're trying to get to show using the spreadsheet? So as long as you know that information, you can always play around with the spreadsheet and move things around and see if it should be set up the way that we see on the screen, or if the column headings and the row headings should be flipped. And I've done that before whenever I was having to create stuff. I put it one way versus the other. And then when you make charts, you can also flip it as well. So just see what works best for you. If you're the one that's having to create it from scratch, you'll probably do a little bit more of that than if you are getting a requirements document like they talk about in the textbook from someone who's asking you to actually just do the work, but they're giving you the data for it. So just know that that's the thing that you need to have to begin with. I know I talked about it in the presentation last week, but columns are identified by the letters, rows by the numbers. The intersection of those, F6, is the cell reference that we call that. So we always say the column letter first and then the row number. So it's F6, T17, or whatever. This cell reference always shows up on this formula bar. This is called the name box. This entire bar is what's called the formula bar, but this is actually what is the formula bar. And this is where you'll see anytime you have something typed in a cell, it will show up in this formula bar. You probably learned as you were working last week and reading through the textbook, these buttons here. The X is your cancel button. The check mark is your accept or okay or enter. I think it's called the enter button. And then the FX is the insert function, which we will use. We'll learn how to use that. I believe we do some of that this week and next week as well. The ribbon and toolbar, or the ribbon and the heading, are basically the same. Just they have different things in them. So that's kind of the main difference, is just that formula bar that's in there, and that you need to know how to reference the cells correctly, and in putting in formulas like we'll do tonight. So you'll type your title and your subtitle, just an A1 and 2. You're going to type your column headings in row 3, and then your row headings in column A. And then when you get ready to put your data in, like I showed you here, or like it's shown here in column C, you can go all the way down that column, each of those, if that's easier for you. If you want to type Benny's information and go across that row all the way to the end, you can do that as well. Whichever way works best for you. Tab moves you from one cell to the next. Your down arrow or your enter key, like if you start here and you just want to go down this column, you can type 3, enter, 1, enter, and you just go down one row at a time. So let's see, I think, oh, and when you put the dates in, I can't remember if you guys did dates last week or not. When you enter the dates, you may enter them and they may look differently than they do when they actually show up, because the date format, it should be the same for everything, but sometimes it's set a little bit differently for each person's computer, or the settings that each person has. So don't worry about how it looks if yours is not exactly like the textbooks. When we start, we will set the date formatting a little bit later on. Once we have our column titles and row titles put in, oh, I forgot. I want to show you this one. I left this one empty because when you type the hours worked and the hourly pay rate, you want those to be on 2 lines like you see here in E3. And so I'm going to show you how to do that in D3 here. So this should be hours. And then to get to the second row, you're going to press the Alt and Enter key. And then we'll just type the word worked. So you'll have to do that for column, or for D3 and E3 to get those titles on 2 rows. You cannot press the Enter key. If you press the Enter key, you go down to the next row. So you have to do Alt and Enter to be able to do that. I don't think there's anything else. I will tell you, when you type in your employee names, you need to make sure you get those typed in correctly, because that is going to be used to create your email addresses. So if you have something wrong here, you're not going to get the correct email addresses when we use that flash fill to do that. All right, you will put in the hours worked information and the hourly pay rate, and then we're going to use those 2 rows, or those 2 columns of information, to create the rest of this salary report. But the first thing we're going to do, I'll show you how to do the flash fill. So you're going to put in the email addresses of the first letter of their first name, and then hold on, this is already, let me clear out the formats from that. Okay, so it'll be BALTORE@example.com. And then you have to type the second one in, so it'll be lfox@example.com. Now that we have both of those selected, you need to select B4 through B12. Now, when I was working with this earlier, my column width was not increased like it just was. And so if you have not increased the width of column B, you're not going to be able to click up here and select it, because when you type in an email address like that, it's going to have that automatic hyperlink, and then it's going to want to open up a email program to set an email, or to send an email. So you can click down in the B12 and select all the way up to B4. You want that range selected, B4 to B12. That's called a range, and it is written B4:B12. So if you ever see that written, it says select the range, That's what it means. It wants you to select B4 all the way down through B12. Some people, either they don't listen to me or they don't read the book or both, because they will select B4 and then they will come down here and select B12. And that is incorrect. You will not get the information the way you want it. So to do our flash fill, we'll select all of this, and then we have to go to our data tab, and then we are going to come over here to the data tools, and we will click this flash fill, and that should fill in all of column B with the email addresses that we need. Okay, let me pause for just a second, and I shall be back in just a second. I have to tend to my daughter. Okay, I am back. So, okay, so that's flash fill. That is, I will tell you that I have that work sometimes for me, and I have to stop and undo it all and redo it sometimes. So if it doesn't work for you at first, you're probably like me and you've done something a little bit wrong. So just undo it and try it again, and hopefully it'll work for you the next time. I'm not sure if we changed the sheet tab name in module 1. I think we did, but if you need to change the sheet tab, you're just going to come down here to the tab, and you can either double click it, and it'll put the little I-beam in there, or you can right click on it and choose rename and then give it the different name. I think we learned how to change the color too. So you just go here to the tab color and then select the one that you want. The colors that you see for the tab, those are affected by the worksheet design, design theme or colors. So you need to make sure that you've changed to the right theme or the right colors to get the right colors for your tabs. Okay, we are going to learn how to put in formulas, and I'm going to show you different ways to do this so you can kind of come up with the best way that works for you. If you're looking through your textbook as you do this, at the beginning of this using formulas or putting in formulas, they give you information that is sometimes a little bit confusing to people. So for example, they have in the gross pay, which is column F, you're going to have a formula that takes the hours worked and multiplies it times the hourly pay rate. While that's all good and a great explanation, that doesn't tell you what you need to put in here as an actual formula. But what you need to do is where it says hours worked, you will need to replace that with the cell reference. In this case, it'll be D4. So it's going to be D4 times E4. But we have to start all of our formulas and our functions with an equal sign. So we will do equals, and then you can just type in D4. And you might notice when you're looking at your textbook that always the letters are in a capital form. You do not have to type them in as a capital. You can type them in as lowercase, and Excel will automatically change them to uppercase, but you don't have to type them in that way. So D3 times E3, oops, E4, I'll get that right. So as you notice I'm typing these in, you'll see that the D4 is in a blue color and it has a blue border around D4. Same thing with E4, it's red and it has a red outline and cell color that corresponds to that. That is not as important right now because it is right next to it. But as we learn in Module 3, where we have a formula that is being multiplied times a cell here, and then maybe one somewhere else over on the screen where you can't see, that is where this color coding is helpful. So you can see what cells it's actually referring to. So once you have that formula typed in, you can, I think in your textbook, it always tells you to use the enter button up here, which you can use if you want to. I don't usually use it. I usually just press the enter key. I see those did not get rid of the formatting there. So let me do that. I thought I did. I thought I cleared everything, but I'll get rid of the formats. So, okay. So this is what it will look like, just an unformatted. It will have the decimal point because we have the 0.5 and the 0.25. And I think it's very difficult to read as we do this, but that's just kind of part of it. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and go across here and we'll do our federal tax. Now, your federal and your state tax, if you guys have ever had a job, which I'm guessing most of you have, and you see the taxes taken out for your federal and state, you usually just see a dollar amount that's taken out. You don't know how that's figured. So in our textbook, it tells you that your federal tax is your gross pay. It's 26% times your gross pay minus your dependents times 22.16. So I don't know where those calculations come from. I am guessing it's some government economics major that has decided those are the numbers that need to be used to tax everyone for their federal taxes and their state taxes. So the payroll person that does that for you probably understands why those are the calculations. I, as a computer teacher, do not know that. I just know those are the calculations that we use. So when we are having to do a 26% times, and you'll see in your textbook, in parentheses, it has gross pay minus your dependents times 22.16. So in parentheses, that's what we're going to do first because we learned that back in algebra. Anything in parentheses we do first. Well, also inside those parentheses, we have a subtraction and we have a multiplication. And in your textbook, it talks about the orders of operation, which we probably learned back in algebra as well. But for me, it's been several years. So for some of you, it may have been several years as well. So inside our parentheses, Excel will calculate the multiplication first. So it will be however many dependents, in this case it's 3, times the 22.16. Then whatever that number is will be subtracted from our gross pay. Whatever that number is will then be multiplied times the 26% to get our federal tax. So this formula will look like equals 0.26 asterisk for multiplication, and then your open parentheses. And in this example, I'm going to show you how to use what's called point mode to create your formula. So we have to type in the equals 26% times, and then we'll open parentheses. But to help reduce with typing errors or data entry errors, we're going to use our mouse to point. So we are going to take the gross pay, which is F4. So when we click on F4, it will put F4 in there. And then we're going to do this subtraction. And we need to subtract our dependents times, so we'll put that multiplication in there, the 22.16, which is the number that's given to us by the government. Then we will need to close this with a closed parentheses. And so that's what our formula will look like. Equals 0.26 times, then in parentheses, F4 minus C4 times 22.16. So when we use our enter key for that, we get the federal taxes taken out of our paycheck. Now, I will say, if you use the enter button up here, you will stay in the cell that you were currently in. If you use the enter key on your keyboard, you will move down to the next row. If you have your formula typed in here and you press your tab key, you will move over to the next column. So any of that works as long as you get to column H in row 4 for the next formula. It doesn't matter how you get there, but just know you can do it however. So our state tax is equals 0.055 times our gross pay. And so you can do these formulas however you want to. If you're a click and type person, if you're a keyboard person, you can do them either way. And you might have noticed there I accidentally clicked in this cell. You can always click and change that as long as you see that moving border. That moving border is technically called a marquee. You might have read that in your textbook somewhere. As long as you see that moving marquee, whatever you are working on is still alive or valid or whatever. So you can always move that to a different cell if you click accidentally in the wrong place. So once we have the information we need, I'm going to press my tab key this time. It's going to take me over to I4, but we'll see this, the state tax here is $144 and something. To get our percent of tax, we are going to take the federal tax plus the state tax, and that will give us the total tax that is taken from our check. And then we will divide that total number by our gross pay. And that will tell us what percent of our paycheck is taken out for taxes. That's always fun to know, isn't it? So we will type equals, and then we have to put in parentheses because in this case, we need this addition of federal tax plus state tax to happen first, and then the multiplication, I'm sorry, the division of gross pay after it's done the addition. So if you remember back from algebra, your orders of operation, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. So those hold true in Excel as well. So you always have to use parentheses if you need one of those later functions or later operators to take place first. So this will be federal tax, and then we're going to add the state tax. So we'll use the plus sign. We'll close that parentheses, and then we're going to divide by our gross pay, which is an F4. So this guy has 30-some%, almost 31% taken out for his total taxes, which is about right, I think. Actually, I think that's a little high, but it is what it is for him. So, so then we have to figure out what our net pay is. This is what you actually get to bring home in your paycheck. So for that, we'll do our gross pay minus the federal tax plus the state tax. So it's going to look a little bit different than our percent of tax. It's kind of going to be just backwards of that. So we'll do equals our gross pay, which is F4, minus, and then in parentheses, federal tax plus H for the state tax. And then we'll close that parentheses. So in this case, it'll do the addition of the federal and state, and then it will subtract that number from the gross pay. So if we had our handy dandy little calculator, this minus this should equal this. All right, so the cool thing about using functions and formulas is once you have them all done, you can then use your fill handle to oops, that is not what I wanted to click on. You can then use your fill handle to fill them down each column, and you don't have to do each row singly or each column singly. You can select all of your columns and then use your fill handle. And I didn't talk about the fill handle. I did if you watch the video, but so your fill handle is going to be when you take your big white plus sign mouse and you put it on the small green square that is in the lower right hand corner of whatever your selection is. So if you only have one cell selected, you'll see it in the bottom right hand corner. When you put your white mouse on that little square there, it becomes then a big plus or a black plus sign. So you go from the big white plus sign to the smaller black plus sign, and that's when you're going to be able to use your fill handle. So I'll just show you one column at a time here. So you can do this and you can go down. We're only going to go to row 12 right now. So that took that formula and it moved it. So in row 4, it was D4 times E4. If I go down, it's D5, and it moves down. Each row reference changes. All right, so what I did here is something that we'll learn at the end of this module. I'm showing you the values version just so you can see it's D4, E4, D5, E5, D6, E6. So this, what you see right here, this is called relative referencing. So what Excel does is it changes the cell reference based on, in this case, what row the formula is copied to. So we don't want down here in this row the formula to be D4 times E4. We need it to be D8 times E8. So by using that fill handle, when we move it or when we copy it down, it changes those row references. And that's what we call relative cell referencing. So you need to have a good understanding of what relative cell referencing is, because next week we'll learn about absolute cell references. So it's relative to the row that it's moved to. You can also have this, and you'll see next week where we will have formulas. Well, actually, you'll see it later on down here. We'll have formulas over here that we will then copy across the columns. So it can go either way, down in the different rows or across the different columns. Your cell references will change, and those are called relative cell references. Okay, I'm going to go back to our regular version here. So what I'm going to do for the rest of these, though, is we're going to select all of them, and we can take our insertion point, our plus sign, put it on that little green dot. You must have the black plus sign, not the black four-headed arrow. The black four-headed arrow will move will move your data from one cell or one range to the next, and that's not what you want to do. You need to make sure you have the black plus sign, and then we're going to be able to use that fill to copy those formulas all the way down. All right, you guys doing okay so far? I guess so.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Next part of your textbook talks about the orders of operation. You guys can read through that if you need to. Let me go. I've done all these formulas. Okay. You did learn last week about doing the auto sum. And we're going to use it in different ways this week, but you can use the totals or use the auto sum button to determine what your totals are. And I've left it here in D3, so it just summed up those columns. We do not need to have a column total for hourly pay rate because that just is irrelevant. But we can do a total for gross pay, federal tax, state tax, and net pay. We aren't going to do a total of percent tax. What we're going to do is we're going to take the formula that we have in I-12. Because we did all of these at the same time, we stopped at row 12. But for our percent tax, we actually are just going to take this formula and move it down to the next row. Now, if you see, as I did that, I'm getting an error message. I'll show you a couple different things here. First of all, we have this option buttons over here, and this is the autofill options like you get anytime you do copying and pasting stuff. So you'll see that also there is the flash fill like we used earlier. So you can copy cells, you can copy only the formatting, or you can copy the cell data without formatting. So the other part of here that you see the error, when you see a pound sign or a hashtag and then a code of some kind, that lets you know that there is an error. And you'll see a green triangle up here in the top left-hand corner. That will tell you that there is an error. If you click off of it, that little yield or what is that? Caution sign here goes away, but you can always click back on that little green arrow and it will pop out again. So if you click on the little caution sign, the drop down arrow there, it will tell you that it's dividing by 0, and that's why you have this error. You can get help on this error. You can ignore the error. You can just do all these different things. Well, for right now, I'm just going to leave it that way because when I do the totals over here, that will give me data that will allow this to not be being divided by 0. So I'm just going to leave it there for now. You'll see that it works out in the end. So to do your sums, you could do them one column at a time if you want to. You can click the auto sum button once. It will put that moving marquee around the range, and it also shows you here the range is F4 to F12. And you know that is the range that you want. So you can either press your enter key, press your enter button, or you can click the auto sum button a second time and it will put in the total for you. You can also do multiple columns at a time. So I'm going to select G and H. I'm going to hold my control key down. I'm going to come over here and select J13 as well. And then when I come up here and click on the auto sum button, because I'm doing multiple columns, it's just going to put the sum in there automatically. It's not going to show me that moving marquee and give me the option to make it different. So I'll click that and it puts the does the auto sum for each of those cells. And then you will notice that because it put the data in here, then my percent of tax has been calculated as well. So if you still have this error thing and it's bothering you, you can choose ignore the error and that will go away. Okay, so the next part of this, let me scroll back over here so we can see. We're going to use functions to come up with the highest, lowest, and average from each of these columns. Now, I will caution you here with this before we get started, because when you are creating the highest function here, you're going to use a function that's called the max function. And there's multiple ways to get to it. You can type in equals max. You can come up here to your auto sum, use your drop down arrow, and you'll see that there's a max function right here. These are some of the more common ones that are used. If you don't see that in this list, you can always go to the more functions, which opens up the insert function dialog box, which is the exact same thing as using the insert function button or this FX button that's over here on your formula bar. So multiple ways to get to it. When you do get to the insert function, and we're going to use this some next week as well, but you will see that you can search for a function. So you could type in max here and then go and it'll find that function. You can also, it will usually be set default to the most recently used. Most of the time you'll find max in there. The other thing you can do is, it's probably the math or trig, it's probably statistical. It'll be in multiple multiple groups here. So if you can't find it one way, you should be able to find it another. Worst case scenario, you choose all, and they are always in alphabetical order. So you can scroll down till you get to the M's and then slow down, hopefully, and find the max function that way. So what we're going to do is, I'm just going to use, I don't know what the textbook tells us to do, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come up here to the auto sum and I'm going to choose max. Now, what I want to point out here, and this is a good example, it is showing us max, which is going to give us the highest number that is in the moving marquee area. Well, if you look there, the highest number is obviously 616, but this is the total, and we don't want the max or the highest, the lowest, and the average to include row 13. So we have to make a change from this saying D14 through D13. So you can either, you see there's a little insertion point right there. You can backspace and type a 12. You can also just take your white mouse and select the range that you want. And then make sure that it says D4 through D12. And then you can press your enter key. You can come back up here and hit the auto sum. And it's going to tell you that the highest number in this column, range D4 through D12, is 80. So we're going to do the same thing with lowest, but we also have to make sure that we're only getting the range D4 through D12. So we'll come down here to D15, and we could type in equals min, and you'll see that that shows up here. And then you can just select the range that you want and press your enter key. So that's a little bit different way of doing it. If you come up here to your auto sum, and then we choose average from our auto sum, notice how it's going to do the entire group of cells above D16. Well, obviously that's not what we want. So again, we have to select the range that we want. Now, once you have done this for the first set of statistics, the min, max, and the average, Once you have it set for that first column, then you're going to be able to use your fill handle and go across all of those different columns. Okay. Now, the only thing that we have to watch out for on this, and I always forget what it is, but it's the average of our percent. I guess you math people, it tells us in our textbook that this is a mathematically impossible or mathematically wrong way to determine your average. So we have to remove the information from I-16. Evidently, you can't take an average of a percent. So all you have to do is go to I-16. We're going to delete that information out. So just press your delete key and it's gone. I was very good at Algebra 1. After that, I passed. So the next part of your textbook talks about the range finder. I showed you that a little bit. If you double click in a cell that has a formula in it, it will show you the range that is used in that formula or function. So if I were to go up here to gross pay, you would see that. If I go to the percent tax, it'll show you in color coding what is used in each of those formulas. That's called the range finder. To remove the range finder, because what I typically do is I try to click somewhere else and then it tries to change one of those. Oh, it's not doing it tonight. I must have done something different. I don't know. But you always want to press if you have the range finder on, it's usually a good idea to oh, see there, I changed it for some, I don't know how I did that, but so now it's referencing G10 in the middle of this, which is going to make my taxes off. So if you do something like that, you can always press your escape key and it will take it back to what it was before. If you accidentally press your enter key and you get the wrong information in there, you can always use that undo button to go back to what it was like before. Okay, this next part is going to take us into the formatting of this. They do have you change your theme, so make sure that you do that. What's it supposed to be here? Okay, I missed it somewhere. I was going to change it, so oh, gallery. We're using the gallery theme. Okay, so in your page layout, then you'll go to gallery. I'm going to do that just so I have the right colors whenever I go through here to do these, because you guys should know how to change the themes already. Okay, so it has us format the worksheet titles. I think you guys did this in module 1 where you had to select the range above the entire worksheet, and then you did the merge and center. And we have to do that for each row individually. Maybe you guys figured that out the hard way. If you try to do both rows at the same time, it will give you this error that says merging the cells will only keep the upper left value and it will discard the others, the other values. So it would only keep the title up here and it would discard the salary report. So just cancel that, and then you have to do those on their own. So that's fairly easy formatting there. So you also will, I think you guys did this, use your fill to do it a certain color. I don't even know what color, so I'm just going to pick one. Make sure you read the book to get that. And then you also put a box outline around it, which I think you guys probably did last week as well. And I don't know, I'm just going to choose thick outside border because that's what we've done before in the past. So again, make sure you read the textbook to get the exact information that you need. Okay, my row 3 is already set up with the heading 3 style. But if I select A3 through K3, then I can come up here to my styles. This is on my home ribbon. And then I choose heading 3. And it's okay if you go ahead and do that a second time, because maybe you made a change in there and something is not formatted properly. So, and then in our totals row, we will also set that to the total cell style. The total cell style is going to have a single line at the top, a double line at the bottom. If you guys have taken accounting, you understand the single line, double line thing. If you haven't taken accounting, it doesn't matter. It's just a way to format it. So they have you format the dates using month, day, and just a 2-digit year. So that's what mine is set up as. I will just tell you here, if you ever see a date that shows up as a number, so this is 40,426. If you ever have a date that shows up like that, what that is showing you is that this is, well, let me see here. September 5th of 2010 is 40,426 days from January 1, 1900. So this is just a numeric value that is assigned to September 5th, 2010. Now, September 5th or September 6th, 2010 is 40,427 days. So therefore, if we put in today's date, it would tell us how many days today is from January 1, 1900. That's just a way that Excel knows what date whenever you're needing to use dates to do calculations, it can use those numeric values to add 7 days or 10 days or whatever. So if you've ever worked with somewhere where maybe you've sent invoices or received invoices and they're due in 10 days or they're due in 30 days, whatever system is used to create those will have some type of a code that says the date today plus 10 days is when this bill needs to be paid by. And that's just a calculation based on a numeric value like this. So that is why you will see dates sometimes show up as numeric values. So if you're seeing that, if you've typed in a date and it shows up as a numeric value, check the format, because it may be set to general, it may be set to number, it may be set to just text. And so you'll just need to make sure you get those formatted the proper way. Okay, probably more than you wanted to know about dates, but they also have you center the dates. I think I saw that in there. So make sure you, well, I know you center these. You were supposed to center these. I don't know. The dates should probably be left aligned, so don't hold me to that one. All right, so you'll see here that gross pay has a $sign by it. I thought I took that out, but evidently I didn't get it out of that one. What we're going to do is we're going to format, again, this goes back to an accounting principle. Well, I learned it as an accounting principle because I took accounting several years, but your first row of numbers, which will be F4 through H4 and J4, because these are currency values, they will be formatted with a $sign. Oh, and I think it's probably supposed to be the hourly pay rate too. So I probably should include that. So all of these will be formatted with a $sign to show that this is a dollar value. So we do our first row, and then we will do, I think the total row. Yes. So since we don't have a total for column E, then we will just select the rest of these cells that need currency values applied to them. In your textbook, you will see where it talks about that you are going to apply an accounting number format that uses a fixed $sign versus a floating $sign. And we're going to actually do both. So we, first of all, we're going to use the ranges that I have selected here. If I can find my place back in my textbook where I was at. Okay, so if I click back over here, I should still have these selected. So I want E4 through H4. Let me just deselect those again. So I'm going to select E4 through H4, hold my control key down, click on J4, then I can click and drag through F13 through H13, and then I'll also click on J13. Now, with all those selected, I'm going to apply the accounting style format, and that is found by just clicking the $sign that's up here on our home ribbon. So when we click that $sign, it's going to put in what's called fixed $signs. These are fixed $signs because you'll notice that each of them are at the very left edge of each cell that they are in. If I were to change the width of these cells, you'll notice that the $sign stays fixed at the left edge. So that's why these are called fixed $signs. Now we're going to apply floating $signs to the statistics that we did at the bottom, the highest, lowest, and the average. But let me go back here because I see the hours worked. You're also going to apply what's called the comma style formatting to this. None of this, well, this should not be formatted as currency because it's not currency, it's the total hours worked. But by applying the comma style, even though there's not anything in here that's going to have a comma because there's nothing in the thousands, what applying the comma style will do is it will give everything in here 2 decimal places, which will help line up all of those and make them look a little bit nicer and a lot easier to read. And you guys will have to read this a lot more carefully than I am because some of these rows, like this one, is supposed to be centered. And so you'll just have to make sure that you do that. Okay, so like I said, down here at the formatting or the formulas that we put in down here, I'm sorry, these are the functions that we put in down here. We're going to select okay. We don't need the hour worked, so we don't need column D selected because those are not currency values. But we want E14 through H14 and J14 I'm sorry, I'm not reading this right. Okay, E14 through G16 through H16. I'll get it right here. So hourly pay rate, highest is E14 through H16 because we want to go all the way through the average. We'll hold our control key down and we'll also do the net pay, all three of those cells. So this down here is where we are going to apply the currency style format, which will give us what is called floating dollar signs. So your textbook talks more about that. So to do that, you have to, because they are having us apply some specific formatting for our section that has these floating dollar signs, we have to go into it by using something other than presets that we have up here. So there are a couple of different ways that you can get to the Format Cells dialog box. You can use the dialog box launcher in your home ribbon that's in the number section. If you do this, it should open up to the number tab as the open tab or the selected tab. You can also come over here in the cells section and do format and go all the way down to the bottom where it says format cells. Now this will usually open up with the number sign or the number tab selected as well, because it is the first number or the first tab in this dialog box. So you will notice that it is selected to be accounting style. We need to change this to currency style. And the reason we're changing it to currency style is because we want to format the negative numbers in a specific way. We do want to have 2 decimal places showing. We do want to have a symbol showing, which is the dollar sign. And then we want our negative numbers to show up as this third option, which is it is black negative numbers that are in parentheses. I'm sorry, black numbers that are in parentheses. Anytime you have a number that's in parentheses or in red, that typically is telling you that those are negative numbers. Obviously, the one with the negative sign in front of it or the minus sign in front of it lets you know that that's a negative number. But we want the third option, which is black numbers with parentheses. So we'll click the OK button. We should not see any black numbers in parentheses because everything is positive numbers for this particular worksheet. And then if you'll notice down here, these dollar signs are directly to the left of the dollar value. So if I were to increase the cells here, you would see the fixed dollar sign stays over here at the left. The floating dollar signs stay right next to the dollar value. So that is the difference between fixed and floating. They have you go back here to the percent, and I'm going to do this because I want to also show you, so you can use the percent style up here. The percent style puts it in whole numbers. You are going to want this to be in, or to show 2 decimal places. So to do that, you'll have to come up here to the number section on your home ribbon, and this is your this is your increased decimal places, and this is your decreased decimal places. So this is going to add 2 decimal places. You have to click it twice, and this will take it down. So if you click happy and you get more than you need, you can always take it back down to 2 decimal places. So sometimes if you don't have your decimal places showing, you may see that some of these are rounded up to 31 instead of being 30 point whatever. So that's why you need to add your decimal places, and then you'll see that they come back to 30 point whatever. So some students are concerned about their numbers not matching up at first, and that is why. It's because of rounding. And it can go both ways. You see them higher or lower because of rounding or not rounding. All right. Our next section here is on conditional formatting. This is a section that a lot of students have some difficulty with. They have a difficulty going back and figuring out how to do this on their own. This is a great feature. If you can figure out a way to use this in something that you're needing to use a spreadsheet for, it's a pretty neat feature, and this is something that can be a pretty powerful feature because once it's set, you can even change your data and it will change the cells that are formatted based on the um, the condition that you put in. So what we're going to do is we want to format um, our hours worked here, D4 through D12. We want to find anybody that has worked over 70 hours in this 2-week pay period. And maybe the reason that we need to identify them is maybe some people are restricted to the number of hours that they can work in a month. I know some of the part-time faculty that have retired at NCC are limited to certain number of classes they can teach each year. And so, you know, they would maybe need something that kept track of that information for them. So we're going to look to see how many people are working 70 or more hours. And I don't know what the specific reason is for this company needing that information. But I will show you as you enter data that is different from what we currently have. So let's say that this person who only worked 60 hours this week, or 60 hours in this 2-week time period, the next week maybe he works 75 hours. So we'll see how the formatting changes once we get this conditional formatting put in here. So first thing that you need to do is select the range that you want to apply the formatting. Then up on your home ribbon, you will see a conditional formatting button. I think this is a step that a lot of people forget, is that they have to select the range first. So if you don't have the range selected, when you go to conditional formatting, the conditional formatting doesn't know where it's supposed to be applied to, and so it doesn't ever get applied to anywhere. What we're going to do is choose a new rule. Now, I will tell you, I believe in your homework, you're going to use one of these icon sets or one of these presets up here. And I can't remember exactly which one it is. Maybe you'll use the 3 arrows. You can see here that it shows you based on data that's already put in here, which ones are going to be green arrows, which ones are going to be red arrows, and which ones are going to be yellow arrows. So that's what your icon sets do. Your color scales are kind of the same thing. You can put those in there. The data bars, you can kind of see what those look like. But what we're going to do is we're going to create a new rule, and we want to format only cells that contain a cell value that is greater than, I think it needs to be greater than or equal to, and we're going to put 70. Now, if you click the OK button here, what's going to happen is nothing, because your format is, there's no formatting. It's just white with black letters. So you have to click the format button. And what we're going to do is we want to format it with, not the font color, we want to do a fill, and we want to use the, what is it? I think that's the accent color 4, which is a purple color. In some of these dialog boxes, they don't give you the screen tips like they do in a lot of them. So you just have to look at the picture in your textbook, match it up. And then I think, yeah, they also have you change your font color to white instead of black. So you'll click on OK. This shows you a preview of what your formatting will look like. And when you click the OK button, it will show you all of those that have over 70 hours in this pay period. Now, if you're like me and you did the icon set, what you'll have to do is go into Manage Rules and then this icon set, you can delete that rule. And then it will get rid of those. Also, that is handy to know because if you maybe get the purple fill, but you forgot the white formatting, you can come back in and go to Manage Rules, and you can select this one and then go back in and edit it and go to your formatting and then change your font color. Or if you didn't get the exact right color for the background, you can change that in the fill section. So, all right, so I'll say okay to that. Now, what I want to show you now that we have that formatting is, let's say that Linda takes a week of vacation, so she only works 40 hours that next pay period, but maybe this guy took some time off the last pay period, so we'll say that he works 80 hours this week. And so notice that because this is conditional formatting, it is based on that condition of greater than 70, greater than or equal to 70. So let's say this guy works 70. So it should still give him purple. But if he works 69.8 hours, then it's not going to be purple. So you'll see how that formatting changes because it's based on the condition of the value of each cell. Now, the other thing that you can watch on my screen here is as I change those numbers, you'll see that the data changes across the row and then down here in the totals as well. That is because we have used these formulas throughout our spreadsheet. Now, I have had students in the past that look at the completed project and they go in here and they type 2,626.13. And then over here, they'll type 91.49 or 45 or whatever it's supposed to be. Oh, we didn't format those. We'll have to go back and fix that. You want to use cell references anytime you can when you're doing when you're setting up spreadsheets. And the reason that you want to do that is so that when you change one thing, you see all of those numbers across here change and all of the totals and everything down here change as well. So you always want to use, I can't think of the word, where it automatically changes versus static. If there's something is static, it's set. It's the same thing all the time. What we have here is our pay rate. This is static data. It is set at $18 an hour. That is what they will make. That doesn't change unless they get a pay raise, and then you would have to go in there and manually change that. But all of these other things, because they are based on formulas, you want as much of that information to be whatever the opposite of static is, and I can't think of what that is right now. But anyway, where it's going to change automatically. Okay, so I forgot to show you how to format the inside of this. So I told you the top row, the bottom row is going to be formatted with $signs. The stuff on the inside, so E5 through E12, and also I5 through I12. These will all be formatted with the comma style. So you can come up here and you can just click the comma style. What that does, like we did over here in the hours worked, it will put 2 decimal places in so everything is lined up. And where needed, it will put in the commas for you. So it just looks a lot nicer, a lot easier to read. Again, this is something where sometimes I have people do the top row and the bottom row, but not everything in between. So make sure you get all of that in between. Okay. What else do I need to tell you? Okay. It does talk about changing the column width and the row height. You've probably seen me double click. You can double click on these to adjust. Double clicking will adjust to the best fit of your columns. So, and some of them you might think, well, that's got a lot of white space in it. Well, that's because this word dependence is a lot longer than just one character. Okay, so what I've done here is I've made column F very small. And I call these railroad tracks. A few years back, I learned that I needed to call them hashtags because that's what they were nowadays. But these are actually pound signs, number signs, hashtags. When you put them all together, they do look a little bit like railroad tracks. Whenever you see this in an Excel spreadsheet, it means that the column is too small width-wise to show all of the value that's in all the numeric value that is in that particular cell. So you'll notice when I do it for text, it doesn't do that. It just cuts off what we can't see. But anytime you have numeric information in there, it cuts it off and it shows you the pound signs or the hashtags. So to change the width of columns to auto fit, you can do multiple columns at a time. I'll just go through F because the rest of them should be good. You should be able to select all the columns and then double click at the edge, at the far right edge, or I think you should be able to do it at any right edge, but I typically do it at the far right edge of the selection. Then it will automatically make the width of these columns be whatever the width it needs to be to show all of the data. You will also sometimes be asked to set a column to a specific width. So if you need to set column H to a specific width, you can put your mouse on the right edge of this and it will show you that my width is 10.38 or 88 pixels. It kind of depends on how you have your machine set up, what you see. But if you need to have this set to 12 or 15 or 12.68 or whatever, so I'm going to set it to 13. I will tell you that sometimes you get close to the 13, but then when you let go of your mouse, it changes a little bit. So if that is the case, if you're finding that difficult to get it to exactly what it's supposed to be and have it stay there, you can always right click in the column heading, and then you'll have the option here in the shortcut menu, the column width. And when you click on that, you'll see it was 13, but now it says 12.75. So I can just type in 13, click on OK, and it's going to adjust it just to that 13 points of width that I need. The 13 is measured in those pixels. I don't know. No, it's measured in the average width of a character. So this should, on average, hold 13 characters of probably whatever the default font is for the Excel spreadsheet. So that kind of gives you an idea width-wise. The other thing, changing row height, you'll see here that row 3 is higher. That is because we have two rows here, and they may have you make this higher. I don't know. It's set to 39 right now. I think they must have you set it at 39 because I did not change it. But again, if you have difficulty getting it exactly where it needs to be, right click in the row heading, come down to row height, and you can set that to 39. Okay, the next thing is they're going to have you look at, they're changing the margins. So you have to go to the page layout tab. Actually, the first thing they have you do is change your view. Right now, we are in what's called normal view. They want us to change to page layout view. And this is found down here on your status bar. I think I talked about the different views in Microsoft Word. I didn't do that last week because we weren't here. So you can change from normal view to page layout view to page break view down here on your status bar. So your textbook has you use the status bar to do it. You can also do it from the view ribbon and just change to page layout view. What you'll notice about page layout view is it shows you the headers and footers of your Excel spreadsheet, and they have you make some changes to it. So they're going to have you type in Madeline Samuels and that she's the Chief Financial Officer. I will just tell you, make sure you spell Madeline Samuels and Chief Financial Officer correctly, because a lot of people get that something typed incorrectly there, and then they don't see it on their screen because they've changed back to normal view, and they're like, I don't even know where that is to go in and make a change. So if you're in page layout view, if you leave it in page layout view and save it that way, then it will be, when you open it back up, it will still be in page layout view, and you'll be able to see where you can make that change. The nice thing about page layout view is it will show you, if you were to print this, all of this should print on one page. Now you will see here that my column F got a little bit smaller there for some reason. So it looks like now it's all on this, but I'm supposed to change the margins to something narrow. So yeah, if I change my margins, which is in the page layout ribbon, to narrow, then that should pop back over on the other page, or not. Okay, it's not. So I don't know why it's not. It should. Oh, I know. Well, no, I'm in page layout. You will have to change your orientation because I took mine from the answer. Basically, you'll have to change. You'll be in portrait. So this is what it will look like to begin with. And then you'll have to change it to landscape. So since this is not all fitting on one page, what you can do is when you go into print, you will change the scaling down here. You can either change it to a specific percent by using the custom scaling, and you can change it to like 90%. You can change it to fit 1 page wide by 1 page tall. So by doing this, it is all fitting on one page. But you'll see I have that one column that's too, it's not liking that. Okay, so now let me go back to my print and see. All right, so whoops, I actually printed that. Okay, or somebody else is printing something. I didn't think I'd hit print. So anyway, this is what it would look like. In Microsoft Word, now that must be a second semester or a second class that we talk about that. Do you see how this is not centered between the left and right margin? You can go into the page setup, and you don't have to do this. This is bonus information for you guys. If you go into the sheet tab, you can set it to, maybe it's not, maybe it's in margins. There we go, margins. And you want to center it horizontally on your page. Then it will center that so that you have the same left and right margin. You can also do it vertically on your page. So where I went into center horizontally, I can choose center vertically, and you'll notice this quite a bit because it's going to pop it down there into the middle. Because you have a header, you probably are not going to want to do that, but you can if you want to. So that's just bonus information for you there on printing. You can also set to print just a selection of your worksheet. And I'll show you how to do that. So let's say that maybe I only want the employee information and their current pay rate, but I don't need all these totals and I don't know what their gross pay and all that is. So I could just select this range here, and I can set the print area for just that section. And then when I go into the print, then you'll see that it only prints that section that I had selected and set as the print area. Now, when you do this, you will need to go back in and clear the print area, or the next time you print, it's only going to print that selection as well. You also will probably want to go in to your print area, and if you've set the custom scaling, you will want to change that back to no scaling, just because sometimes those features stick to the printer, and so the next time somebody comes in to print, they're going to get the custom scaling as well. So you just want to make sure that you don't do that. Okay, I think that is about all I need to tell you. Oh, the one last thing. I showed you earlier the values version. You can do that by doing the control and the accent engrave or the tilde. Either it's the same button, but it has two characters on it. It is above the tab key on the left-hand side of your keyboard and to the left of the number 1. So if you have done Spanish, you've probably used both of those. The tilde is a little squiggly line. The accent grave is what looks like an apostrophe, but it goes opposite of what our American apostrophe is. So that button is the same button, control and your accent grave, and you will see all of the formulas that have been put in here. This is a nice way to check yourself or for someone else to be able to check to see what data you've put in. And occasionally, if you're like me and you double click something and then you click somewhere else, you might have one of these formulas that have gotten off and be crazy for some reason. And so this way you can kind of tell. You can look and see it goes from F4, F5, F6, F7, and so on. And this also will let you see, this is what relative referencing looks like. Each time it goes down a row, the row number changes. Down here where we go across columns, as you see that function that is copied from one column to the next, the column letter changes as you go from each column to the next column. So that is your formulas version, and you just use the control accent mark to go back to your values version. I will tell you, when you're in your formulas version, you will see that your columns all get a little bit wider. Unless you're going to print this page, I would tell you not to adjust any of the column widths on here, because if you adjust the column widths in the values, in the values version, when you go, in the formulas version, when you go back to the values version, they decrease as well. And so you see that the columns that I changed over there are now too small to be seen on this page. So you just have to change the width once you come back to the values version. Okay, let me stop sharing this and I will come back to see all of you blank screens with just names. Questions at this point?
No.
No? Okay. So this week go ahead and get Excel Module 2 textbook training project done. I will post this after it gets downloaded and saved to my, I usually put mine in YouTube and then give you guys a link to that, because I've not had success doing it in any other way. But or I guess I have had success doing it that way, so I'm just sticking to that. And then the Excel Module 2 textbook project that I usually post, did not get that done yet, so I will have that posted here. Hopefully by tomorrow I will have that done. So again, I will just tell you, I will adjust dates for any of you that did not get your work completed last week, as well as you'll have this week to complete the Module 2 stuff. So always contact me and let me know if for some reason, I know somebody contacted me and said I've lost power, or I've got my power back, but I don't have Wi-Fi back, or whatever. So just let me know what's going on. Hopefully we are done with winter until at least December, but maybe not. So we'll see. But if you guys don't have any questions, you can just go ahead and get logged off, and I'll go ahead and get working on that Excel Module 2 textbook project to get loaded up to YouTube, so I can get that link for you guys. Okay?
All right.
All right. I'll see you guys next week. If any of you need to stick around, let me know, or you can just hang out and
Thank
ask
you.
questions. Okay?
I really want more pictures.
I got a question.
Yes, Devin.
Hey, hey, I was wondering if on the module 2, if you could give me a little extension, and on the 3, I'm pretty much done with the Word module 2, the textbook project.
Okay. Yeah.
I know I'm behind. I'm really trying to catch up. So just Word module 2 and then Word module 3.
Okay. Yes. Yes. And I was gonna email you about that. I will just tell you, you will be much better off if you can get caught up sooner than later, because once we get into access usually throws people, and actually Excel Module 3 is a little more challenging too. So I would just encourage you to do as much as you can to get caught up this week.
Okay.
So, and I know that you probably have a bajillion other things going. You probably work. Maybe you work full time. Maybe you have a family that you are dealing with as well. And so I get it, but just keep me posted, and you know, if you have my number or email, you can always let me know. Okay.
Right. You've been more than accommodating. I really appreciate it. I have all the above, but I got to do it, and I'm trying not to give up. So I'm going to dig my way out of it. Try to do a couple all-nighters, but I still got to function during the day because I got the kiddos.
Right. Yeah.
But
totally understand.
But you've been more than reasonable, and I know I really appreciate it.
Okay. All right. Let me know if you need anything.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hi, Drew. Did you need something?
Yeah, sorry. I had wound up getting kicked out of the meeting because my laptop was like, hey, we got 10 minutes left. And I was like, oh, cool. Plug in, and it just shut itself down. So I'm going to have to look into my, my startup programs to figure out why it did that. But I actually had questions about last week's assignment, because I just found it confusing. And if I could just pull that up and go over it, so this way I can actually get the visual clarification.
Yeah.
That would be extremely helpful.
Is it the textbook or the SAM project, or both?
It was more or less the second project, the one with the 12 instructions.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I did have you know, an error here or there on the project one as well, but that one wasn't as significant. I mean, once you answer this question, I'll probably figure out where I went wrong on the other one, just like last time. So let's see. let me, hold on. I gotta go back to the review on the Cengage and then pull up my copy for reference. Actually, hold on. I just go here, go here. So yeah, it turns out even though my subscription expired, I'm still
Yeah.
able to access and do my assignments as you've seen.
That's interesting. I don't know. I don't know why it would have expired. That's kind of odd.
Okay, what is this? Okay, here it is. Here it is. Okay. Let me minimize all this because I have so many things open right now. Let's see. Do you mind if I screen share so this way I can?
No, that's fine. Yeah. Do I have to set that up for you? Do I have to?
You do, yes.
I do. I have to. I have to. How did I do that? I think it was no. Where are you?
Yeah, my apologies for not having my video up the whole class, but I was cooking dinner, and I didn't exactly want all of that in the
I
background.
totally understand. So, okay, it's got to be. Who can share? Okay. Okay, so see if you can share now. I don't. It doesn't seem like the same way I set it up last time, but maybe
That works.
it will. Okay.
Okay,
All right.
so let me go ahead and maximize this on my screen. All right, so you'll see here for number 4,
Yes.
it says it has an incorrect formula.
Yes.
And here it also says it has an incorrect formula. Okay, all right, it doesn't have the copy. So how do I add? All right, so just as a quick thing, it says cell J4 is an incorrect formula and J9 is an incorrect formula. So let me go ahead and change the screen share to my document, which is, where is it? Okay, hold on, I gotta open it. Come on, there it is. Okay, so now here's the document it's referencing. And right here is J4. And it has me take I4 and subtract H4.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 2 ways I can do this that I figured out. Is I can easily do it with this equation here that we've gone through in class. But there was another way to figure it out, and that was going in here, going to the autofill over here, more functions, and then up here, if I type subtract, it gives me this IM sub right there. And then it plugs the equation in. And that was also incorrect because if I were to, if we were to just delete these, and I do the autofill, more functions, that one. And set it up that way. If I click off of it, it's to the left of the square. So we have this gap and an inconsistency because now it's on the left side, but it'll still say it's bottom aligned where everything else is just bottom aligned. So obviously, if I clicked on it and just did that, it would be incorrect because I added a step.
Yeah. Okay.
So I wasn't really sure how I got it wrong. And the only thing I could think of was this one down here, the one that's already in there for you, has parentheticals on it.
Yes.
But if we look at the equation up here, it's the same format that I used.
No, it's not. Look at it closely.
It's not.
Read that one to me. What's it say? Equals what?
Equals H17 minus I17.
Okay. Now go up to the one you put in.
Equals I4 minus H4.
Okay. So which cell reference did you put first?
What do you mean?
You put equals I4 minus H4.
Yes.
So you have 4,200 minus 2,095.
Yes.
Okay. Down here, if you look at J17, they have H17, which is the year to date, minus I17. So it's opposite.
Ah, okay.
And therefore you will get a negative number.
Okay,
And-
that's why I thought it was incorrect, because it didn't show up as a negative number. It showed up in parentheticals. So I was getting confused.
Yes. Yeah. And one thing about subtraction, and this is one thing that I typically talk about when we do the module 1 stuff, subtractions I find difficult for students to comprehend the way that they are usually written in instructions for Excel. Because if you go back and you read those instructions, it says subtract I7 or I7 from, or I4 from H4. Well, because it gives you I4 first in your instructions, a lot of students just take I4 minus H4 like you had. Because in their brains, they think, okay, that's what I should put is I4 minus H4. But if you think of it as, I always have them write it out like on a piece of paper or the chalkboard or whatever, because what they're wanting you to do, what they're wanting you to find is, so our revenue for the entire year to date from January through June is 2,000, whatever. And our goal for the year is 4,200. So we're kind of wanting to find out how far are we, we've done 6 months, where are we at? And so you've gotten 2,095, which is about 2,100. And then your difference is about 2,100. So being halfway through the year, you're really setting pretty good as far as trying to reach that goal of 4,200 at the end of the year. And so, understanding what data you have in your spreadsheet helps. And like I usually tell students, if you're the one who,
I think I get it now, because okay, I read it wrong, because as you said, like the way I'm looking at it, I go, well, you can't have negative numbers,
right?
And that's how I immediately think about it, because it doesn't actually show that it's a negative number. It just has a parenthetical.
Right.
And that's what confused me.
Yeah, and that's where those choices, I can't, your choices, like when I went in and showed you how you can set up the floating dollar signs, and you can set those negative numbers to be in parentheses, but they're black, versus having a negative or a subtraction sign in front of them. And sometimes people put their negative numbers in red because we always hear, well, we're in the red. And if you're dealing with monetary values, then, you know, I think a red negative number is maybe not always a bad thing because it alerts you to something. But like I was starting to say, if you understand the data in your spreadsheet, then that's going to help you understand why you're wanting to do a subtraction of what your end goal is, subtracting what you have in the first 6 months. But because we're not working for Diaz Marketing and we just are trying to do a simple formula that they're asking us to do, you know, we just want to get the formula in there. But if you know, if you were actually working for Diaz Marketing and it was your job to put this spreadsheet together, you're going to have a better understanding of what it is that you're wanting to get out of this project. What is your end result? What do you want to see? And that's where you would see that, okay, well, I am only looking at the first 6 months here. My goal for the end of the year is 4,200. Where am I at in my first 6 months? And so that tells you that you're about where you need to be because it's a pretty even split there, almost 2,100 to 2,100. So that's
Okay,
what it's,
yeah,
that's
I was missing the context of the data.
that's part of it. Yes.
Without the context of the data, I didn't know that it wanted me to figure out how much more I needed to make for the end of the year, in which case it is a negative number.
Right. And most of the time they give you in these instructions, because it's the I mean, either way, whether it's in the textbook project or the other project, there at the instructions that you download for the SAM project should have a picture of what it should look like at the end. So you can always use that as a reference, or in your textbook, it's usually at the beginning of the chapter. It'll show you what it's supposed to look like at the end. So you can always compare to that and see, oh, that's supposed to be in parentheses and mine's not in parentheses. So what do I need to do to make it be in parentheses? So you can do that as well. And I would suggest doing that because we're not always going to get the context because we're not working for Diaz Marketing. So that's just, you know, that's just kind of part of it. But it does help if you have a better understanding of the context, but that's not necessarily a requirement of this class. It's more of understanding why you're using the formulas or the functions that you're using. So,
okay.
So hopefully that will be helpful.
Yeah, that's much more helpful. I also have one question about the other assignment.
Okay.
The one from the textbook.
Okay.
Okay, did it come up?
Yes.
Okay. Right here, that whole line. It says that it wants me to go in between each one of these. Okay, well, it's not doing it now, but go in between each one of these. It's up here. And double click it so that it fills it. So I did that and it said it was incorrect. So what I did is I did that and I formatted and I auto-fit column width. Okay, but well, obviously if I do it again, it screws the whole thing way out of proportion. But I did that so everything fits, and it still said that was incorrect. So then I tried clicking on that for the whole row, and I tried to auto-fit it, and it was still incorrect.
Okay, you need to select the column letters at the top. So you want to go between column A and column B and do your double click.
Right.
Or you can select, you can click where it says column, you can click an A and drag all the way through in.
Like that?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
just,
so
yeah,
it wanted
like
me
that.
to auto-fit every one of these and not just row 3.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, you need you can't just auto fit the data that's in row 3. I mean, you can, but what you get is you get the columns too small to see what you need, because July and June are much shorter than your data. So you have to do the entire column.
Okay, yeah. See, I had interpreted it as click this, and then it was just like these were the only ones that I couldn't see, and okay, I just misinterpreted what I was supposed to do there.
And if you did that if you did that when you typed in the months of the year before you had data in columns or in rows 4 and so on, then that would make much more sense that you formatted them to be the width of the month. And then when you added data that ended up being longer than or wider than the column width, then you're going to get it cut off so you can't see it.
Okay.
So.
Okay, and this is why I hang around after class, so this way I can clarify my mistakes and correct them for later.
Yeah, and that's
And
fine.
so far, I think I've done this twice, and you've been able to help me both times. So.
Okay. Good deal. Is it going better now that you can see the whole ribbon up at the top?
Yeah. Because now if I can't see what it's asking me to see, I'll just expand the whole thing, and I'll be like, there it is.
Yeah.
So that
And
works.
I will tell you, sometimes it's better to split top and bottom than left and right.
Okay.
So that you can see that whole ribbon the whole time. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So like I have my Word document like down at the bottom real tiny so I can like see one instruction at a time. And then I have more space to use my spreadsheet or my database or whatever on the rest of the screen. So that might help too.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome. See you next week.
See you next week.
All right. Bye.